Cool, now we're underway. So I wanted to take a minute before we get started just to situate the conversation. So this roundtable is not only to celebrate the issue of JEP, it's also a part of a longstanding series on professional development that the ACH puts together. And I wanted to take a minute just to talk about why that is, because I don't know that it naturally feels like it would be something that's part of a professional development sequence. A lot of professional development opportunities focus primarily on skill building, which is, of course, something that's really important in thinking about people's professional trajectories. But at ACH, we've really tried over the last couple of years to take a broader view with an eye towards understanding all of the complexities of the professional landscapes that we're navigating, whether those are in universities or kind of in the near spaces adjacent to higher ed. Some of our past sessions have focused on things like labor rights and advocacy. That's been a big theme for sure. Ways that AI is affecting our fields. Some concrete stuff like CVs and resumes and navigating the job market, but also, things that are a bit more zoomed out, things like ethics and emotional labor and care in professional spaces. So the issue that we're talking about today is titled On Gathering, exploring collective and embodied modes of scholarly communication and publishing. And I wanted to put this together as a way to think collectively about how we make meaning in our work. I think a through line for a lot of the folks who are contributors is that we think that community matters. We think that how we work matters. And sometimes it can be a bit tricky to articulate how those different modes of working actually change the scholarship that we're creating and sharing publicly. So this issue is an exploration of what that can look like, how we might think about the kinds of ephemeral encounters, the conversations that we pass by that seep into our scholarship without necessarily leaving the kinds of citational traces that we might be accustomed to. So I am thrilled to have so many contributing authors here today. The time is going to go really quickly, but my hope is that in the hour we have together, folks will get a taste of what the issue is all about and be inspired to read a bit more. So to begin, I'm going to ask each author just to briefly introduce themselves and the piece that they contributed, and give a sentence of context for where they find themselves professionally. And while folks are doing that, I'm going to drop a link to the issue itself in the chat. I don't know the best way to do this. I'm going to just call people's names so that we don't have long lags between people. And if I miss you, please speak up. So Amber, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber Sewell. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an assistant professor and teaching and learning librarian at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I work with students in gen ed curriculums. And I wrote a piece giving voice to community, embodied scholarship, generative discussion, and other affordances of scholarly podcasting that really explored how podcasts can allow us to showcase the embodied and community-based nature of scholarship.
Thanks, Amber. Amanda?
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda Wyatt-Visconti, they, them, and I direct the Scholars Lab DH Digital Humanities Center at the University of Virginia Library. And my piece, I have to look up the title, is Organized Futures, Speculative Design for More Just and Joyful Scholarly Infrastructure. And what I did was use speculative DH research examples, which are kind of creative what ifs, which I think a lot of folks in this issue did. To think about how we can rethink and move away from academic rigor in our DH peer review and instead work through kind of a speculative outline of what would a DH review clinic plan for work that you actively wanted to bring your work to and you weren't afraid to, and it was a gift and a great experience would look like.
Fantastic. Thanks, Amanda. Erica?
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Makalak. I'm the founder of the Hikma Collective and Kath Burton, and I wrote a piece called The Grant Writer's Paradox, leveraging public scholarship ideas when the money is uncertain. It's great to be here.
Kath, do you want to jump in next? Co-authors?
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm Kath Burton. I am the Director of Humanities Development for Routledge Taylor and Francis Journals, and I had the distinct pleasure of writing this wonderful piece with Erica Maculak. And looking forward to talking about it all with you all today, and being in such illustrious company. Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. Eva?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Eva Spiegelhofer. I use the pronouns she, her, and I work at the University of Vienna in Austria as coordinator of the Vienna Anthropocene Network there, and also at the Center for Teaching and Learning, where we are currently developing a video online course on the climate crisis. But more importantly, in the context of today's roundtable, together with my colleague and friend Elisabeth Tavella, I'm editor of the Animated Worlds Foreign Digital Publication Project, and our article is very much a meta-reflection on our process of working on this project together. And I don't want to get ahead of anything that Ellie might tell you about it, so I'll stop here.
Ellie, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi everyone. Ellie Tabella, they, she. I'm currently teaching at the American University of Rome after finishing my postdoc at the University of Chicago. And I work in critical animal studies, environmental humanities, and with Eva, yeah, we wrote this article collaboratively. I'll just share the title. In dialogue with more than human worlds, collaborative kinship and relationality in digital publishing. And I look forward to chatting about it in more depth with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Lee, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lee Scalar-Bissett. I'm the Assistant Director for Digital Learning at the Center for New Designs in Learning and Scholarship, otherwise known as CANDLES, at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I am one of the co-authors and a member of the Data Sitters Club, a DH collective working on the Babysitter Club book series, which is a popular YA book series for girls from the late 80s, early 90s. And our article was another meta reflection on our process for creating and writing the books, our impetus behind it, and reflections on the implications of that. So.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know a couple co-authors are here. Katya, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Katia Bowers. They or she, they. I'm a member of the Data Sitters Club. I'm also an associate professor at the University of British Columbia.
Awesome. Thank you. And Anouk?
Hi everyone, I'm Anouk Lang and I'm a senior lecturer in digital humanities at the University of Edinburgh. I'm an English lit person and yes, it's my pleasure and privilege to be one of the Data Sitters Club. So Lee already explained beautifully what our
awesome.
Piece was about.
Thank you. And I think I just saw Quinn jump in. Quinn, I don't want to put you on the spot, but your co-author group was just introducing themselves if you want to say hello.
Oh my God, right on time despite being late. It's a morning. Hi, I'm Quinn Dombrowski. I am digital humanities staff in the library and the Division of Literatures, Cultures, and Languages, which is all of them except for English, East Asian, and Classics. And I run a textile makerspace. That's probably the short version.
Amazing. Thank you. Roopsie, I didn't see you come in.
Hello, I'm Roopsie Rizim. I'm an associate professor of film and media studies and complet and digital humanities and social engagement at Dartmouth. Also honored to be part of the Data Sitters Club, and just express our gratitude to you, Katina, and to everybody at the Journal for such a wonderful issue.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, Anilda, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nilda Romero Hall, and I am an associate professor in learning design and technology at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And my piece is a co-author collaborative autoethnography from a group of feminist scholars. The title is A Feminist Scholars Collective Supporting the Growth and Dissemination of a Digital Guide, a Collaborative Autoethnography. My co-authors are Claire Daniel, Jacqueline Tony Howard, Naya Bond, and Liv Newman. And our piece is specifically focused on our experiences as feminist scholars supporting the dissemination of feminist pedagogy for teaching online, which is a digital guide that is available open access. We talked about just very briefly the successes that we've had, the challenges that we have experienced, and just like the journey of being part of this digital collective.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I don't see your co-authors here, but if someone is here, please interrupt me because I don't want to miss anybody. Stephanie, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie. I'm a recent graduate from the PhD program at the University of Calgary. Our piece is preserving pregacious stories through methopedagogical gatherings to carry forth other worlds, where we explore alongside Ursula Le Guin, carrier bag theory, and do some storytelling alongside her. My co-authors are Shaliza Ladhani and Mari McDermott, who unfortunately can't be here today, but I'll let Shaliza introduce herself as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I'll jump in. Thanks, Steph. I know you're not feeling well, so I really appreciate that. So lovely to put some beautiful faces to this beautiful issue. Shaliza Ladhani, postdoc, near expiring postdoc soon at the University of Calgary. And just to add a little bit onto what Stephanie said, we were really hoping to reimagine the scholarly archive by foregrounding our relationships and our relational entanglements across space-time over several years to really honor the fragment and ephemeral knowledge that we've been playing with. So lovely to be here with you all today.
Thanks, Shaliza. Malcolm, you want to say hello?
Hi, hello. Sorry, I've been battling. I had an issue with some technology here, but you can hear me, I think. Hi, I'm Malcolm, a freelance historian and bibliographer, and I did a piece with Sarah Pike, who's here. And I know that we agreed Sarah was going to speak about it, so I'm going to pass on to her if that isn't usurping you too much, Katina.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Sarah Pike. I teach children's and young adult literature at the University of Munster. But my piece in this issue with Malcolm is related to another aspect of my work, which is on queer bibliography. And in 2023, we convened the first conference on queer bibliography, which has now become an annual event. And we were subsequently invited to co-edit a special issue of the Papers of the Bibliographical Society of America on this topic. So our piece is really a reflection on putting together a conference that took on a bit of a life of its own, what has come after, and our experience of exploring or really institutionalizing a new disciplinary area, but as contingent and precarious scholars, and what that has been like. Really the big impetus for writing it was the invitation to think about process and to capture some of that, because we felt that there was a lot there, that there was no usual channel in which to kind of pin that down, but I'm sure we'll go on to talk about this.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really hard to show the seams, and that's really what we wanted to do with this issue. Jaj, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jaj Karajvikar. I also go by Jaj, she, her pronouns. I'm the Applied Data Science Librarian with Research Data and Digital Scholarship at University of Pennsylvania Libraries. The piece I contributed is called Feasting on Collaborations. I share my thoughts on bringing together people with food, zines, food making as a critical making practice. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Nala Vega?
Hello, my name is Nala Vega Ross, and I use she, they pronouns, and my piece was called, I have to find the title, A Call for Papers, Postcards and Beauty, Method and Ephemera. And I wrote the piece because I was thinking about, as scholars, what ephemera do we leave behind with all the things that we do? And I wanted to really think about, I created a fictional journal, and I wanted us to think really critically about what we leave behind when we're doing all our DH, but also to really think about beauty and what is beautiful as an actual method in research, and something that we shouldn't just think about and leave on the wayside. So that's my piece.
I love this. Yeah, thank you. Liz, sorry, I caught you mid-cough.
That was perfect. It's like I cued you. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Grumbach. I'm so incredibly excited to be here today because I have been rereading everything this week that is in this volume. But hi, I had the honor of writing with Christina Boyles and Purdom Lindblad a thing called something called Design Studio as Method, Reparative Archives and Beyond. I forgot to say my title. I'll say it in a minute. But I want to talk about the piece first, which is a kind of experimental piece that was seeking to kind of invoke and inspire through something called the design studio method, which is usually done in person, something in print that would allow us to think towards reparative digital archives, reparative digital practices, just by being in conversation with ourselves and the voices we're invoking and also the reader. And I think Christina might say all of that better than me. But just to introduce myself a little bit, I am the Director of Digital Humanities and Research at Arizona State University. I work in a place called the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics. So I do critical technology studies there. Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Thanks, Liz. Christina, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Boyles. I am currently working at Indiana University, and I was lucky enough to get to write with Liz and with Purdom. I think Liz said it brilliantly, and I can't do it better. But one of the things I really love about our piece and what Liz taught me through the design studio method is the ways in which we don't have to let things go and disappear. We can keep learning and iterating, and providing a strategy that I can use for that, but also my students or even more casual conversations with our colleagues. So I think that was a really exciting part about working on this piece for me.
Fantastic, thank you. I think that's all of the contributors. If I missed somebody, please say something. There's a lot of folks here. Okay, interrupt me if if I did miss you and you want to chime in. But to jump into a little bit more substance. So everybody can read one another's pieces online. So I think we're not going to spend a lot of time summarizing what's actually in the content of the piece, but in keeping with the spirit of why this issue came to be and what we were trying to do, I would really like to talk about process. So for me, I'm not a faculty member. I don't work in a university. I don't need any of this for tenure. So I'm not invested in like the trappings of what the formal scholarly communication process looks like. And at the same time, I recognize that there's value in how that process works, in the fact of peer review, in the professionalism with which the journal is run by Yannicka and Elisa as editors who are here, and I'll let them speak at the end of the session, and also by the folks at University of Michigan who take the time to do the typesetting and the copy editing and all of those elements that really bring our words into a form that is legible and receivable by folks in this kind of agreed upon yet arbitrary mode of working that is kind of the scholarly communication universe. So within this issue, I really wanted to see the kinds of creative approaches that people would bring. I think you've heard a little bit about what some of those look like just from hearing people's introductions to their contributions. And at the same time, it created an interesting tension between the imagination and the creativity that people were bringing, and sometimes the limitations of the platform that we ran into, the constraints around process and timing that are a part of it, the life events that come in between when you have, a process that stretches out over the better part of a year. And all of these things are part of the reality as well. So the process of getting from, me and Elisa's first conversation about whether this issue might be something of interest through the CFP, through the final published work, it has really been a journey. One of the things that was very important to me in the process and that I saw someone bring up in the chat was to think a little bit differently about the peer review process. We didn't throw it away entirely, but rather than having two anonymous peer reviewers for each piece, I wanted from the first stages of that work to bring all of the contributors in conversation with one another. So each contributor or group of contributors signed up for a piece that they would also want to peer review. So we had one open and one anonymous peer review per piece. And I think that started to bring about some interesting resonances and realizations that maybe wouldn't have come about if we hadn't been reading one another's work from early in the process. So that was something that mattered to me, but I'd be very curious to hear from some of the contributors if there was anything unexpected that emerged for you in this process from start to finish, anything that you learned, anything that was surprising, or that you particularly liked or that rubbed you the wrong way. And this I'm just going to open up to anybody. We don't need to, go one by one. So just jump in or raise your hand if you have something you'd like to share. Yeah, Amber, go ahead.
Yeah. I think I had a unique experience with peer review on this issue. And that's honestly what drew me to this call. Like Sarah was talking about earlier, the emphasis on process was really interesting to me. And so for my piece, it underwent 2 rounds of peer review. The first was open peer review via podcast. So Hannah McGregor, who's also a contributor, and Professor Laurie Beckstead out of the University of Toronto, who I've worked with previously. We did an 1.5 hour long conversation where they actually gave me feedback on the first iteration of a draft, and then I made revisions based on that feedback, and that's what went to the second round of peer reviewers. And it was really fascinating. Like, I wanted to capture in this piece the impact open peer review via podcast can have on a finished piece, because for me, I've done this a couple of times, and it's just, if I could do peer review this way every time I would, it totally reshaped what I had initially submitted, because we were able to have a dialogue. I'm a librarian. I do kind of sound scholarship as like one piece of what I do, but I'm also all over the place in librarian world. So to have 2 people who this is really the work they do engage with it and kind of offer me suggestions and talk me through things in a way that we wouldn't have been able to if we were just bouncing comments back and forth to each other, I feel like I'm a revolutionary for open peer review podcasts now. I want everybody to have this like really supportive experience that can wholly reshape the way you think about your piece, because it's not just that expertise piece that we often think about with peer review. It's the experiential piece and being able to put that in dialogue together live so you can really co-create new knowledge that wouldn't have existed without that conversation. And I tried to capture what that process looked like in writing in a kind of more traditional monograph. But that was also the challenge when I was talking with Hannah and Lori. They really challenged me to think like, how could you push the creativity of this piece? How could you incorporate more than just written reflection in the piece? And that was an interesting tension, like you mentioned, Katina. Part of me really wanted to dive even deeper. But I'm writing this, and this is just one part of my job and a busy part of the semester. So, like, how much creative brain do I have left? And then also the constraints of publishing within a scholarly journal. One of the things Hannah suggested was having 2 versions that you could kind of toggle back and forth between, and that would have like markup that would talk between the pieces. And I think I got too overwhelmed by just that possibility and how different that looked than what I'd proposed, that I didn't even ask if that was technically possible. But I know just asking like, hey, can I use different color font and different text types? Wasn't sure it was going to happen. So I really appreciated how this let me explore process and made me aware of like, I thought I was really comfortable pushing some of these boundaries. And then when it was like, hey, push it further, I was like, oh, I don't know about that. So it was a really interesting and valuable process.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, yours was definitely one of the more interesting, and as far as process goes, it's tricky to figure out. Ellie, go ahead.
Yeah, just to actually follow up for us, for Eva and I think the peer review process was incredibly interesting and eye-opening, because we also actually discussed the peer review process for our own digital project and how we experimented in just opening the peer review process, or at least the first phase, to the whole animated worlds community, which in itself generated so much collaboration, inspiration, imagination, in a way that it created an in-depth exchange that was, I think, actually knowing each other created that new bonds and new knowledge that when you have that anonymous screen, between individuals, that the critical aspect tends to take over, right? And so it actually in our community, it helped create actually the community. And so for us to reflect on that process while also being involved in a peer review process and experimenting in first person, it was really an incredible experience. But also just for us being in a stage of for animated world in which we are just entering the production stage. And so a lot of our writing process was to think imaginatively about what the next stages would look like. And so having a space that, Katina, you created for us to actually think critically as we do, right, has been extremely challenging, but also an incredible invitation. So we're extremely grateful for the opportunity to experiment.
I'm so glad. Yeah, and there were so many, your piece was one of them, but there were so many pieces that had all these layers of meta reflection, like a, kind of a core project that was at the seed of it. But then I loved seeing, it felt like a way to sort of peel back all of these things that are happening behind the scenes in our thinking process and our writing process that we don't always see. Nalabega, jump in.
It's always a game of cat and mouse to find my mouse. So I'm very similar to Katina in that I'm not in an academic space. Actually, my day job is I work at a pediatric hospital. And so the process for my piece really came from, I was really, it actually was at the tail end of 5 back-to-back rejections of different pieces. And I thought, I'm tired of writing to journals because that's how I saw it. And I was like, I want to write to my friends. And I was like, who would I want to be in collaboration with? And what do we want to produce together? And it was also at a time where I was just thinking about everything that was going on in the world. And the world felt very ugly to me at the time. And I really wanted to write to my friends, make them laugh, and give them something beautiful. And I just kind of started in that space, and that's how I came to my piece. And because of my positionality, I'm like, I want to make this as black as possible. And I wanted, the whole process was very selfish. I wanted to write something beautiful for myself and my friends. And I think I was kind of pushing back on at journals broadly defined. It doesn't matter if it was in the humanities or even in my day job. It was just this pushback and saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to create mine, and it's going to be the most ridiculous one ever. That's why it has the ridiculous name. I had like 5 different types of names, and I was like, pick the most ridiculous. And it gave me this aspect of play as I was writing this that I had never experienced in any like piece of scholarly writing. And I really enjoyed the peer review process. Thank you, Malcolm, for your feedback, because then I discovered even more things that have made different other offshoots of different projects. And I think that my process was really just, I wanted to play and I wanted to create something beautiful for my friends. And that was the whole process, because I just wanted to have something beautiful out there in the world for people to see, but also really think about when we write these things, because we are always producing stuff. When we write these things, what will our descendants think? We always approach, we get stuff from our ancestors, but we one day will be ancestors too. So what will our descendants think of the stuff we leave behind and this ephemera that we leave behind? And that was also the underlying thing, because I have a 9-year-old, and every day I'm like, I'm writing. She's like, what have you written? And I was like, do you want the science paper? Or do you want this little tiny thing that also can be beautiful, that if your 9-year-old friends are like, what does your mother do? You can just give them this piece. So all those things were kind of working as I was making this project, and this piece. And I sent it to Katina, and she's like, yes, I want it. And I'm like, are you sure? And I was like, and so the process of writing it was very beautiful and very healing for me, but also the peer review process came from a place of kindness. And I say this because I working on another paper, and we got a review back where the reviewer was like, this looks like it was written by AI on bananas. And I was like, why would you say that? And so we had fun with writing how we would actually respond to this reviewer. We did not send it in, but again, it was this idea of play and what do I want to leave behind, and can I make it beautiful, that was in the process as I was writing it. So yeah.
I love that so much. I mean, thinking first about my own kids who are similar age, they're 10 and 7, and they're kind of puzzled by like the writerly part of my life. And it's interesting to me, I didn't grow up with parents who were involved in the same type of professional spaces. And it's so interesting to me how normalized it is for my kids to see their parent writing. Like the whole thing is just, it's kind of trippy for me. But what I really love about what you're saying is the question of pleasure, because like none of us are getting paid for this work, right? So like, why are we doing it if it's not bringing us pleasure? There's so many parts of academic life that are so painful, like, and half of them we're also not getting paid for. And so I hate that feeling of like getting 2/3 of the way down the line of a project and just dreading having to open that document again, dreading having to respond to peer reviewers. Like why bother with the dread? It just, I don't know. Again, like I'm not invested in the trappings of these things, and I understand like why we sometimes have to write in those spaces, but to be able to reclaim some of that writing as pleasure, writing for ourselves, writing for our loved ones, feels really meaningful to me. Thanks, Nalabega. Yeah, Erica.
Thanks, and thanks, Nalabega. So much of what you said resonated with me too. I'm also a person who works not directly in the academy. I'm the founder of a company called the Hikma Collective, and one of the things that we do is work with academics on grant writing. And so when Kath and I came together to write the Grant Writer's Paradox, there was a lot of, the piece for us really celebrates projects and sort of their funding journeys that we've been involved with in various ways. And so when I hear you talk about joy and wanting to write for your friends, and also thinking about the accountability dimensions of peer review, it felt for me like participating in this special issue, the dynamics of accountability were a lot more positive. Like I wanted to be accountable, and I wanted for the work to resonate with the people that I wanted it to serve. And also, I don't get very many opportunities to co-author, and it was just such a brilliant experience working with Kath, who is such a kind and generous and smart co-author, that having all of those pieces in the mix, even responding to peer reviews collectively, thinking through together how we respond to that feedback, was kind of a rare opportunity to do the process differently that I really appreciated.
Fantastic. And one of the things I really liked about your piece, Erica and Kath, was the investigation into grant writing as a form of scholarship, and the relational aspect of grant writing as also part of the scholarly project. Like it's, Erica, I know you and I do some very similar things in our workspaces, and it feels deeply intellectually engaging when you're in it. And I think it's not often seen that way from the outside. And so to see that articulated was really fantastic. I think there's so much that goes into supporting the work of research and teaching and scholarship that is itself intellectual work. That it's great to see it, take shape in a way that can be shared instead of just feeling it, in the back of my brain.
Totally.
Thanks for contributing it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my pleasure. And yeah, it goes to your point earlier about how so many of these pieces build on their kind of meta discussions of project, which is projects, which is true for us. Kath and I both share a case story from our own experience working in partnership-based grants. But yeah, the intellectual work is right, and the idea that one of the cases we really make in the piece, and that was also true of the article, is that it's about the process and the thinking that develops through the writing, and particularly through collaborative writing. Yeah, right on.
Yeah, just picking up on that very quickly. We deliberately wanted to call these case stories rather than case studies. We're not making a point here about something that is essential about the collaborative writing that we did or that goes into any form of scholarly communication, but we wanted to embody those personal stories, those narratives that we've constructed working with others, which is sometimes just not given any kind of space or any kind of airtime. So I was thinking on this when Amber was talking about the podcast as a means via which you can refine the words that you want to get down on a page. That kind of embodied conversation is so valuable. And I feel that's what we really experienced, Erica and I, working through this whole process. But the spirit of that embodiment was coming through the peer review as well. So I don't know how we can get that into future scholarly communication paradigms. And I say this working for a big publisher. It's not going to happen from our perspective anytime soon, but we could multiply all of us in some kind of magnificent way and try and find having that kind of peer review companion or assistant. I think that would be a wonderful transformation in the way in which the Academy handles various aspects of peer review. And it has been a real joy for me working from the other side of the curtain to see all this in action.
I love it. Thanks, Kath. Ava and then Rupsi.
Yeah, just one thing that also, in addition to what Ellie already said, how the peer review process was very special for us, also in relation to our own project. Another thing that for me stood out from the start was how this special issue was just foregrounding the things that we normally don't see. And embodiment is also really a great keyword for this, because you often get those disembodied texts, right? You get papers, you get articles, books published, but the person and the life behind this work is rarely seen, and it doesn't matter so much in academia. And I felt that with this special issue, it was okay to just show that we are all people, right? We have our daily lives, we go about our business, we struggle with stuff, with emotional breakdowns or whatever it might be, or just the geopolitical situation is just too much to take. And all this goes into our writing and our research. And so this for me and for both of us was also very special, that the special issue gave space to this fact that we sometimes just forget about.
Yeah, thank you, Eva. Ripsy?
I just want to observe, so I've actually written twice for this journal, and in both cases, I came away feeling like there's such an intentionality around selecting people for peer review. And for those of you who don't know, I run a journal, and that's really that pick who you select and being really careful and intentional, and finding the people who are going to not come in and just say like, oh no, this is terrible, reject, but actually sort of try and see what the authors are doing and help the authors make that better is really important and valuable. So I wanted to make that observation about JEP in general, but then also specifically, Katina, when you read a CFP, like the one for this special issue, it just makes such a difference, because the pieces that I've written for the journal, the one with the Data Sitters Club, is very, very different from the one that I wrote for an earlier issue, which was specifically around multilingual publishing. It was very academically formal and all of these things. But when you see even just the way you're thinking, the way you're phrasing, the way you're sort of invoking the metaphors of the mushrooms and the connections and the rhizomes, it really creates the opportunity for us as writers to follow in that spirit. And so thank you. that was really important for this.
Thank you for saying that. Those were two moments in the process that I spent a lot of time thinking about, and I'm really glad to hear that they landed in that way. Finding reviewers is hard. You're asking people for free labor. You're looking for people who are, not part of this wonderful group of people, and yet who have an affinity towards thinking in this way. And not all of them landed. Not all of them were, I think, as successful as others. Some of the reviewers didn't quite engage in the ways that that I was inviting you all to think through your work. And that was hard also, to then mediate between the kinds of critiques that were expecting something different and the contribution, which in fact was exactly what we were hoping it would be. I was looking for a link to the CFP to share, and I don't have it on hand, but here it is. I'll drop it in the chat in a minute. I wonder if this might be a good moment. Elisa and Yannicka, I think you're both here. Do you want to introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit about JEP from a higher level as a journal?
Hey, shall I introduce myself? Because I think Elisa is going to talk a little bit more about the journal, so I'll go first.
Sounds good.
I'm Yannicka Adema, and I'm Associate Professor of Digital Media at Coventry University, and one of the co-editors of JP. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to see all of you, because I think Elisa and I had the pleasure to read your work just before it kind of was published, and it's so nice to kind of see all the interrelations between them. And we're so happy, that this issue is now out. And yeah, thanks to all of you for being open with, experimenting around the process, and to Katina for steering the ship and kind of, taking us along this journey. This is only our second special issue that is published now for us as co-editors. So we're trying to kind of still find out what we want to do in this space too. And it's really lovely to kind of do that together with, JP's authors too. And I think for us, it's really important we see the journal as a community, right, of people working together to move scholarly communications further. So, but anyway, I know Alyssa is going to say something a bit more formal. That's just my kind of quick reflection. So thank you all, and it's lovely to see you all here.
Thanks, Yannicka.
Yeah, thank you for me as well, Yannicka. And actually, don't have many more formal thoughts, but as always, have a lot to blather about. So, hi, my name is Elisa Arbuckle, she, her, and just want to echo Yannicka's thanks to all of you. This issue is really special, and I think the first time that Yannicka and I read through it in its entirety was maybe 6 weeks ago, and we sort of just messaged each other like, oh my God, this is so cool, like so different than so many, frankly, like special issues that you see out there, right? So Yannick and I, just to give a bit of context for our own roles here, we stepped into the co-editor role of JEP in summer 2023, so about a year and a half ago. And JEP, Journal of Electronic Publishing, has been around for 30 years. It is this kind of OG open access legacy journal. And Yannicka and I, we came to this with, frankly, a lot of respect for the journal, a lot of gratitude for the editors who had, really thoughtfully stewarded this over time. But we also came to the journal feeling like, okay, if we're going to do this labor of love, we want to do it in a way that aligns with our values, that aligns with what we care about, and that aligns with the kind of work we are most excited about, and the issues that we are most excited about in publishing. And frankly, a lot of these publishing journals can turn into like case studies from like a commercial publisher who's trying something that's the same thing they've been doing forever, but with a different name. And we're just like, we're not super, no shade on that, but we're just not super interested in it. So we wanted, as Yannicka said, we wanted this journal to do more. We wanted it to really step into a role of facilitating a discursive community, because that's what we see the humanities journal in its like essence as doing. Like we have journals in the humanities for a reason. Preprint servers don't make sense for us for a reason, and that reason is community and connection and conversation and sharing ideas and building on each other's ideas. And I just think that this special issue embodies that so beautifully, like embodies really what we see as the essence of humanities work. So oh gosh, I took notes because I knew I was just going to blather on. I'll wrap it up very quickly. But I just wanted to say massive gratitude to Katina. Katina and I've been running in the same professional circles for a long time now, along with many of you. And frankly, like I'm always looking for ways to work with her. And always like being like, hey, want to do this thing with me? Which she so far has been like very gracious about, which I appreciate because I just have a lot of respect for you as a scholar and as a community facilitator. And it's really a joy to collaborate. So huge thanks. And my last plug, because I have to plug, we were so thrilled to see Roopsie and Quinn publish in our last special issue, Multilingual Publishing and Scholarship, and then publish again in this issue. We're like, yay, people aren't being like totally terrified by us. And we would love for all of you to, keep an eye on a CFP and to consider staying and publishing with us in future. And if you want to be a peer reviewer, we love to have, as Roopsie put it, like thoughtful peer reviewers, and we're pretty selective with who we ask to be in that important role. So yeah, please don't be a stranger. And again, just my gratitude to everyone again.
And huge gratitude to you both as well. I mean, Elisa approached me about this a while back when you and Yannicka had just taken over leadership of the journal, and Elisa had been part of INCAP collective conversations for quite some time. And so one of the things that we had thought about, some of you have been part of those discussions from like early days in 2020 or 2021, where I was just trying to hold some space to have conversations about higher education without necessarily having expectations on where those conversations would go or what the outcomes would be. And for a time, it felt very important to have that kind of non-transactional space, because it's so rare in the academy, not to have somebody that you are beholden to, someone you need to report out to. It's also a luxury that not everybody could take advantage of, especially in a moment when we were in a pandemic and people's obligations were multiplying. And so that was a tricky piece too, thinking about whose voices could be a part of those open-ended and amorphous conversations. But one thing that started to emerge was a feeling of wanting to be able to share those conversations more broadly. And so that's kind of the early impetus of how this special issue came to be, was a desire to carry those discussions beyond something that could sometimes feel a bit cloistered in I think, a good way and an important way. You don't want everything open to everybody all the time. You need spaces for intimacy that are a bit more closed as well. But then there can also be a time to then share out more broadly. So it's been really beautiful to watch this unfold in that way. And yeah, it's always a delight to work with Elisa and with so many of you all who I've gotten to collaborate with over the years, and to be reaching points in our careers as well where those collaborations can keep happening and unfolding in new ways. And, we can be making the choices about who we bring into conversation instead of feeling like we're at the whims of people more senior than us. So that's been a really fun part of, growing alongside many of the folks here who are kind of mid-career and advanced career. As kind of a last question for us to think about together, and I would open this to everybody, including folks who have been joining us to listen in. But one thing that I'm coming away with from this is wondering if it matters, and if so, how. There's journal issues being published all the time, constantly, everywhere. How many people are reading them? I don't know. Like Elisa and Yannicka probably have stats on like readership and things like that. But like Kath said, peer review isn't going to change from this one journal issue. The big structures are probably not going to change. But I still think this work matters. And I'm curious if you do, and if so, why? Does it, like, why do we bother? Why do we do this kind of work? Yeah, Timothy.
Thanks. So I'm here in part because I'm editor of another small journal called Limb, where we are fiddling around with a lot of the process and conventions of what journals are. And what for me, why it matters and why I'm here is because this is a slowly growing group of people who are thinking and articulating how to do things differently. So I, in some ways, jumped into that, working with groups like COPIM and other folks, doing really, really important research on and writing about what it means to publish differently. And so that's a small but probably growing community, and that's what we're So right at this very moment, we're in the midst of our collaborative peer review process. That all of the authors right now are meeting on a Zoom and talking to each other because they've all read each other's papers, and so we're fiddling with that right now, and trying to figure out how best to do it and for what reason and what do we think we're trying to accomplish. So that's why for me these conversations are really generative. So I was really happy that you were going to do this out in the open.
That's really great to hear, and it's so good to hear about other experiments that are thinking along similar lines. I dropped what I think is a link to your journal in the chat, but if I'm wrong about that, please correct me. Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that it in that same way is that this spreads out. It shows people that can be done differently. And then if you're inspired to do a special edition of a more traditional journal, you can bring that in. Roopsie and I edited a special edition of a journal around minimal computing and ed tech. And we didn't do exactly the same thing, but we did an open peer review process with all of the contributors. And while we still needed to do a kind of blind peer review as per the edict of the journal, we were still able to negotiate a different, more generative way where everybody who contributed did a writer's workshop, basically with all the other contributors. And it proved to be a really generative and productive space. And so again, it's kind of paying it forward, and being able to do that hopefully inspires those authors on that journal that we worked with, and even the editors that we worked with, to be open to different formats of peer review as they go forward and through their career and edit journals. So I think there's something really generative and inspiring about it that tells people, I can do this differently. So when I have an opportunity to edit, do an edited volume or a special edition of a journal, then maybe I can talk to the editors and say, I want to do it differently. What do you think about doing it this way? I've done it before. It turned out it was really, really productive. And kind of push it through that way as kind of a grassroots way of doing it.
I do think you're right that there's something about just loosening the sense of like, well, we have to do it this way really matters. And the more people just that are not coming into the process assuming that this is what peer review and writing and publishing looks like, the easier it is to start pushing some of those changes forward. Jad, you want to chime in out loud?
Oh, I was just comparing this alongside ACH 24, which was also a very interesting time as we are right now. And just there's a certain effect going on in academic spaces, which is preemptive bowing down to pressures of different sorts. And I think being able to express your whole self creatively is more important than ever before. And seeing more and more people do it made me feel comfortable to do it. And I am very risk averse. So, it's already working with me, then hopefully it's happening for more people as well.
That's really true. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, we were chatting kind of before the session officially started just about how I would say how challenging these last couple of weeks have been, how heavy they have felt. One thing I didn't say is how futile some of the work that I've been doing has been starting to feel. Why am I writing an NEH grant about justice and racial equity when all of this is happening and I know it's going to get thrown in the garbage? And the churn of like needing to keep doing that work, because if we preemptively stop, nobody else is going to pick it up, but also feeling like like I do not know what the outcome of this is going to be. I think that is when it matters to be in community, to remember that, like, we're not just running up against these same hurdles on our own, and that there is there's always a group of people who are wanting to uplift this kind of work, no matter how difficult it gets. So I think that's actually a really lovely note to end on. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I appreciate how much we've been able to say in a short time with so many voices to share with. And I guess just as a final note, I just want to express my gratitude to you all for taking a chance on the CFP, for putting your time and your energy and your thought not only into your own pieces, but into one another's. I think we'll try to continue. We've been having some sort of loosely monthly authors chats, and we can keep doing that for as long as it feels good to keep connecting, and maybe there'll be some new collaborations that emerge from that. But just want to end by saying thank you, and wishing you all many more collaborations that happen in this spirit, whether it's through JEP and folks in this group or in other spaces. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, a restful weekend, and I will hope that our paths cross in one way or another before too long.
Thank you, Katina. Thank you to everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye.